What's something that needs to stop being passed down the generations? Hoarding. Even if it's not full-on dangerous thing that you see exploited on TV. I understand keeping sentimental things or having collections, I'm an oddities collector myself, but when you can't safely walk around or escape in the event of a fire, it's a problem. I feel that children of DERs either become DERs themselves or do a complete 180 with a minimalist approach. The former is very sad to see. Small town mentality. I don't mean to knock any small towns, just the mentality that I'm all too aware of staying in that town, raising families there, not traveling and learning new cultures, people, ways of life. This traps people into marrying someone they are familiar and not necessarily a good choice. It keeps people from challenging their beliefs, their biases, their way of living. The don't rock the boat kind of living has held back many people from living their best lives. You don't have to live in a small town to experience small town mentality. It can apply to staying within one's religious group, or one's neighborhood, or one's race, etc. Coming from a family that moved around a fair amount, and living in areas with a wide variety of religions, ethnicities, races, etc., I've always been in SMH mode at how many people live within a non-diverse universe. Generational hate. I live in Northern Ireland where the populace is historically divided between Protestants and Catholics. If you don't know, in the 70s there was essentially a civil war between both groups over whether Northern Ireland should remain part of the UK or reunite with Ireland. Dumbed down version for speed. It's sad to see that newer generations are growing up with blind hatred of the other side for events that they never experienced and barely understand. I don't exactly know what to call it, but the rules that parents' generations back pied on. I long for the day that I hear a man tell me, "My dad's dad was abusive and expected nothing but the best from my dad. My dad was abusive and expected nothing but the best from me. I just had a child, and I will be proud of anything they put their mind to, and I will never put a hand on them if I am disappointed in their actions." Generational names. Had I been born male, I would have been the third in line with the same name from my paternal side. As it is, I inherited a female name that has pied through at minimum 5 generations on my maternal side. And Odie can announce it since it's from the old country, Irish as, and probably a I's spelling of the original Gaelic. I go by a nickname instead, and if I ever work up the to do so, I'm changing it officially. This might have been said already, but the I turned out fine mentality. Sometimes it's helpful, but in my experience it more harmful. If you find yourself justifying something with this odds are you're not fine. I am so sick of hearing older generations saying this. I used to be spanked and whipped for being a brat and I turned out fine, so will you people need to realize that not everyone is alike, nor was that healthy. Wealth. While it's nice to be the one to inherit wealth, it really messes up the balance of things. Probably the most prevalent source of problems in society, with domino effects you can't even imagine. It even tends to damage the family members who receive the wealth, as they become less capable of being well-functioning individuals. Not learning financial skills, restraint, empathy towards others who struggle, etc. What kind of limitations would you put in place to prevent wealth transfer between generations? Religion. Most people are indoctrinated when they are young. Plenty go into adulthood with little to no knowledge about their actual doctrine, due to listening to selectively watered-down version of their holy book. The silly part is, the only reason they believe their deity is the only real one, is purely due to geography. Let children decide their beliefs when they are old enough to understand the actual book they are interested in following, if any at all. Circumcision. I never asked for my to be mutilated. My dad did it because his dad did it, and his dad before him too. Nobody here is Jewish. I guess it just became a matter of course. I won't circumcise my child when the time comes. I have a friend who elected to get circumcised at age 18, so maybe the GR is actually greener on the cut side, who can say? My friend could probably tell me the pros and cons though. Trauma. Stop fucking peeing it onto your kids. Work on yourself, and be the parent you wish you would have had. Don't make your kids suffer the same trauma as you did, do better. I say this as a mom who has already royally fucked up as a parent, by letting my own traumas affect my children. I am working hard AF to correct my mistakes and make sure they never go through it again. I will never forgive myself for not being a better mom, but I'll be it if I go there again. Problems. It's a sign of maturity and optimistic foresight to want the next guy in line to have it easier than you. If I have kids one day, I'm not going to feel somehow cheated that they didn't lose 2 to 3 years in their prime to a pandemic. I'm not going to be upset if the house they buy costs less than the one I buy. If the next person in line has it easier than you, That's a sign that you did something right, not the opposite. Taking care of your parents. I don't know if it's majority of old Asian traditions, but forcing the first male child to take care of the parents. As far back as I could remember, my parents grilled in me that I will be the one taking care of them, meaning they will move into my place. Doesn't matter if I am single, married, seeing someone, etc. It is my responsibility to ensure they're taken care of. Bad words. Why are they bad? They just are. Ask anyone. Vulgar. Obscene. Wash your kids' mouths out with soap for saying them. Because they are bad. Why? Because your parents taught you they were bad. Their parents taught them they were bad. You will teach your kids those words are bad, and they will teach their kids. And not one of them, including yourself, will be able to explain why. The idea of trickle-down economics. It's a scam and it's the source of all of our economic problems today. If you're still on the side of handing more money to people who have enough for 10,000 lifetimes of unimaginable luxury, then you are either a complete idiot who is incapable of admitting you were wrong, or you're one of the millionaires/billionaires who don't want to work for their money anymore. Dinnerware/fine china. We've already inherited 2 sets we never touch, just sitting in boxes in the bati. My mom just dumped 3 sets she inherited, and still has 2, one we use, and 1 partial set she keeps because the design looks like cross-SCH patterns. Probably made more sense when families had 4+ kids and everyone was too poor to buy their own, but it's getting ridiculous. Too many family heirlooms no one wants, but feel guilty if they get rid of them. Trauma and complaining like I've depression right and I would never lash out to my future kids like you think you have it hard? How you feel sad? Imagine how I'm feeling. All that if my future kids have trouble with depression, suicide, gender identify and or duality like the stuff I went through, best I can so is be there for them, accept them and bring them to therapy for professional help. Hate for others for things in the past that can't be changed. The number of kids you see here hating on Japan for things they did to Korea back in the day, their grandparents lived through a lot of, they p-ed down their hatred to their kids, who p-ed it down to theirs, who p-ed it down to the kids of today. Fortunately, as they get older, learn to separate the historical tragedies and the modern people of Japan. Rigid gender roles. Not trying to be super radical here, but some of them are just laughable and it's shocking how people go through life with these, in my opinion, limitations due to what they were indoctrinated with. Another fun thread could be shredding some of the ridiculous ones. Men not showing emotion, women not getting their hands dirty, who pays for things, women not going to places alone, etc. Trauma. Now this is common but the generational trauma needs to stop. What goes on in the house stays in the house. Stop crying before I give you something to cry about. You all just never listen to me. Do you know how frustrating that is? To be a parent and have children that never listens? This teaches children that they're both loved, they can't show emotion, and they shouldn't talk about it because it's disrespectful. I feel like this has gotten worse over the past 5 to 10 years, but black parents having the talk with their black kids. Like YTF would you tell your kid they've been set up to fail, that white people hate them, cops will target them unfairly, and that they'll be subtly discriminated against in general? That is basically child abuse. You're stripping them of their agency and stoking racism before they even have a chance. Religion. I think each person should have the choice to believe in whatever makes them feel connected and comfortable. Beyond my parents, my family is religious, although they the most scandalous ones. My parents weren't church people so they let their children, us, choose to go to church if we wanted to, we didn't lol, but my sisters and I ended up becoming spiritual and connected with ourselves because we found our own way, and our lineage is better for it. It saddens me that I had to scroll so far to find this. Religion is primarily p-ed down by emotional abuse,